One of the things that we all think about is keeping ourselves safe during the time of a disaster. So, our initial, gut reaction, knee-jerk reaction, is to shelter in place, stay safe. How do we stay safe? The obligation that we have potentially as business owners, or owners of commercial properties, or being affiliated with homeowners associations, are how do we also keep the people safe, that are doing the same thing that we are with collateral damage? Because one of the risk factors there are the collateral damage after the hurricane passes. So one of the things that Derek mentioned in there was, think the risk of fire or continual flooding after the storm, and being able to assess what else am I responsible for after I keep myself safe. So I think if we keep that in mind, that'll help through some of these next steps about developing a plan. So on to step two, developing an evacuation plan. We've got here a sample map that we were able to actually obtain from the city. Most city, municipalities, counties, and the state will have already predetermined evacuation zones based on your particular area of residency. So those can be extremely beneficial in helping develop an evacuation plan, because a lot of the evacuation routes have already been pre-highlighted. So here's just a sample map that we were able to obtain through public information. So on to the next. So in conjunction with obtaining those kind of maps and directions, you want to first and foremost summarize procedures for community evacuation. So how is that going to play out on a global scale for your particular business, your particular employees, your particular guests, as well as residents, depending on your application and particular business. So what internal procedures do you have in place for that evacuation? If you don't have one, that needs to be evaluated and discussed amongst your business or your community. The second is include the evacuation route maps and directions like we showed an example of earlier. Again, that's public information and can basically be disseminated out of your community and downloaded through numerous applications. Identify the nearest public shelter. So you may have a plan in place to evacuate. Where's the nearest place to evacuate to stay safe? And be able to provide that information as to location and distance. In addition to that, we need to take appropriate measures to pre-approve authorized individuals for post-disaster access credentials and consider procedures for a resident canvas with special attention at high-risk residents. So this kind of applies to obviously a residential application as well as an employer-employee application. Who has access back into the building, whether it be residential, whether it be commercial, and we need to make sure that if there is security or some sort of secured access, that if somebody evacuates, the people that normally offer that access, how do people that are still there to help be able to get in. So make sure we've got contingency plans in place for that. One of the options there is to consider using a resident or a tenant evacuation placard that's got emergency phone numbers that can be prominently placed to inform public safety personnel that the residence has been evacuated. So that can assist first responders and then put you in touch with somebody that is at the property if needed. Condominium residents and tenants in particular should consider an access waiver in the event that authorized personnel need to gain access to shut off utilities or otherwise protect the property. Talked a little bit about that on the earlier slide, but one of the things that in a commercial application or in a condominium or HOA application, you've got to realize that a lot of this collateral damage can cause even more damage than the actual hurricane or traumatic event. So one of the things to keep in mind are if you lose power or there's a gas leak or there's some sort of disruption in electrical or water, that all of these, if you're in a commercial business, that all of the commercial businesses that are in that building or housed in that building, if it's a multi-use property, that they all share a central gas, or they share central electric or water, and we've got to be able to shut those down and get access to shut those down, so we're preventing collateral damage to other businesses and other residences. So also encourage residents and tenants to make arrangements for pet care in the event that evacuation to a public shelter or a hotel is necessary. Don't forget pet supplies, including crates, leashes, food, and containers, plastic bags for cleanup. I know that everybody I know with any kind of pet is, treats them just like their family. So It's not just that you would forget them, but pre-prepare, when you're preparing some of the items we're going to talk about later in the presentation, for food and water and those things. You also want to prepare for your pets. And even though it's not just evacuating with your pets, but in a traumatic event, when you're in the chaos of potentially keeping yourself safe, there's the opportunity for pets to run away. So all of these things to kind of create contingencies for and be prepared will help.
And Travis, we've seen it all over the news and TV. Every time a storm hits, it seems like we always see loose pets and pets that got lost and were detached from their family, and it's sad. And like you said, we have a lot of in our company, we have a lot of people who own pets, and they, like you said, Travis, they love their dogs or cats or whatever. So I think that's a very big point.
Yeah, so we love them and we take care of them, but we need to prepare for how to protect them in the case of emergency as well. And then lastly, we need to notify our residents and tenants of measures to safeguard and protect property during the evacuation.